So in this sixth video of the SAT Foundation series, we're going to talk about the sentence completion questions of the critical reading section. So normally you are going to have, assuming of course that there's no experimental section, you're going to have 8 plus 6 plus 5, which is 19 sentence completions questions out of a total of 67 questions. So you have 19 sentence completions, which means you've got, what is that, 48. Yep, 48 reading. So the reading obviously is the dominant questions, and we'll talk about how to study for sentence completion in a second. But nonetheless, even though there are much fewer of these, they still will obviously impact your score, so we should focus on them and do our best to get the highest score we can. So, first thing about the sentence completions is that there is a rough order of difficulty. So the first third of them are approximately easy, the second third are approximately medium, third approximately hard. So in an 8-question section, which we're going to see in a second, you can count on 1 to 3 being easy-ish, 4 to 6 being medium-ish, and 7 to 8 being hard-ish. But of course, this is very fuzzy. Just something to keep in mind, though, when you're doing the questions. So, as one general tip, if you're having trouble with sentence completions, if your vocab is not up to snuff, you may want to focus solely on maybe the first half, 1 to 5, and then skip 6 to 8, or even just do 1 to 4, and skip 5 to 8. Move on to the reading, and then if you have time, come back to the harder ones. You don't, just like in the math, you don't want to spend a ton of time on these hard questions if you're not going to get much profit out of it. So that's going to be a general strategy for you if you're having issues. Obviously, if you want to do very well in this section, you want to get 600 plus, you'll have to try them all. So let's talk then about what this tests. So it does test vocabulary, of course. You need to know some words in order to do it, especially on the harder ones. But it also tests sentence structure, meaning, and interpretation. So it is going to be reading, where you need to be able to interpretation. You need to be able to read a sentence and try to figure out what is the author trying to say, what is the sentence trying to say, and what word do I need to complete that thought. And that's where the critical comes from, the critical reading. Critical reading is about figuring out author's intentions, what a piece is trying to say, and in that case, your intervention is, okay, well, what do I do? What words do I use in the sentence completions to make that happen? So, in general, about practice, so people say, well, how do I practice? Should I study vocab? And my take on it is, if you're not doing very well on the test overall, say the math section, the writing, and the reading, and especially in the reading passages, then spending hours studying vocab would be kind of a low-value activity for you. If you're not, just because it's something that I'd rather you take 10 hours and practice questions rather than take 10 hours and practice vocabulary. Because there are just relatively so few questions compared to the bulk of reading questions and also compared to the bulk of other questions on the test, that in general I feel like if you have limited time, obviously if you've got plenty of time, then of course please study vocab. And there are a lot of products out there that can help you. But if you've got limited time, it's a relatively low value activity, and I think you can spend it elsewhere a little bit better. So let's talk now about the general technique, because there is a technique for these sentence completions. And I ran out of room up there, so let me go to the bottom of this and kind of write it here. But first, actually, let's look at the instructions, because the instructions, just like in the math, are going to be the same. So, let's see what they say. For each question in this section, select the best, note they say the best, answer from among the choices given, and fill in the corresponding circle on the answer sheet. So note again, just like we mentioned in the first video, it's best. It's not necessarily the right, they don't say the right answer, they say the best answer. So that's something to keep in mind, that sometimes we're going to have 5 choices that are not going to be great, but there's going to be one that's just going to be the best. It's the least, the one that sucks, not that isn't as bad as the rest. So let's read this part. Each sentence below has 1 or 2 blanks, each blank indicating that something has been omitted. Beneath the sentence are 5 words or sets of words labeled A through E. Choose the word or sets of words that, when inserted in the sentence, again, best fits the meaning of the sentence as a whole. And they give us an example question. We're not going to do this because we're going to do one on our own. Okay, so what is the general strategy going to be of this section? So let me change the color here. Let's see. So the first thing is going to be read the sentence. Read the question. Read the question. Let's skip number 1 for a minute because it has 2 blanks. Let's just do number 2 first. So, step 1, read the question. Alfred Schnittke's musical compositions are blank. Phrases are clipped, broken into sections, and split apart by long rests. Okay, so we've read the question. What we do not want to do, and this is kind of what people end up doing, and this is what I was mentioning a little bit in the first critical rating video, is you don't want to go then right to the choices, and what you especially don't want to do is you don't want to plug in each one of these words into the blank, because it's going to sound right. And College Board is going to depend on you listening for the sound and see how it feels and sound, and very fluffy in that way. We want to deal with what the sentence is saying. What is the sentence actually saying, and what word best completes that thought? So this is what I mean. Let's throw in garnished for a second. Alfred Schnittke's musical compositions are garnished. Phrases are clipped, broken into sections, and split apart by long rests. Now, especially if you don't know what garnished means, you might think that that doesn't work very well. But if you do know what it means, you may still be able to justify it as an answer. Let's take cautious. Let's take cautious from this. Might work very well. Let's throw cautious in the blank. Alfred Schnittke's musical compositions are cautious. Phrases are clipped, broken into sections, and split apart by long rests. Well, I could sit here and justify this, right? I could say, oh, well, maybe he's being cautious, so he's kind of clipping his phrases and he's breaking things up into sections so they're not kind of together as one, and he's using long rests to be very cautious about his music. So you can see, even though we know cautious is not going to be the answer here, because it really doesn't fit, we could do a lot of verbal gymnastics to make it fit, and that's why we don't want to just put these words right in the blank and kind of read the sentence and test it out, because we can fall into the traps that they're going to lay for us. Another reason is that it just takes forever. You've got to take each word, put it in the blank, you got to reread the sentence, then you got to say, alright, does that work? No, okay, cross it out, and the next one. It just takes forever. So instead, we're going to do something different. So we're going to read, number one, we're going to read the question, then we're going to avoid the choices, so I guess you can call that too, avoid choices for now. And then the third step is the key step, and that's what the key technique I was talking about in the earlier video, which is come up with your own idea. In this case, it's going to be put your own word into the blank. Put own word. Now this word is going to depend, we can kind of make it step 4, look for the hint. This word we put into the blank is based off of what we can call the hint, or other people call the clue. So it's the part of the sentence that essentially tells you what goes into the blank. So, let's look at this again. Alfred Schnittke's musical compositions are blank, colon. Phrases are clipped, broken into sections, and split apart by long rests. Note that this part of the sentence here, phrases are clipped, broken into sections, and split apart by long rests, this part is essentially telling us what should go into the blank. This word, whatever this word may be, should mean something on the order of, clipped, broken up, split apart. Right? So this is right here is our hint. Now you know it's the hint because if we changed this, it changes what would go into the blank. Let's say the sentence read this: Alfred Schnittke's musical compositions are blank. They go on forever. Right? Let's pretend that's what it said after the colon. Well, now what goes into the blank would be something like are interminable, like are unending, or infinite. Right? Something that goes on forever. So we know this is the hint by the fact that we could change it and change what goes into the blank. So now that we know what the hint is, let's put in our own word into the blank, and we're going to do this every single time. So this is not just for the easies or the hards, it's for every single time. Even if it's an easy question, you're going to do this. So musical compositions are, sometimes what we can do as well is look for the hint and use it. Sometimes you can just take the hint and just put it into the blank. So in this case, let's use broken. So musical compositions are broken up. We could also use, clipped, we could use split apart, anything like that. But we're looking for something in the choices that means like broken up, split, clipped. Garnished, does that mean broken up? No. Okay, now step 5, sorry. Compare and eliminate. So go to the choices and compare your idea, your word, to the choices, and then go from there. And eliminate the ones that don't fit. So garnished, broken up, no. Improvisational, broken up, no. Fragmented, that means kind of broken up, clipped, split apart. Cautious, nah, doesn't fit. Uniform, no way. So the answer here is indeed C. And that's all there is to it. So in general, you're going to read the question, you're going to not look at the choices, you're going to look for the hint, put in your own word, then compare your word, your idea, to the choices. Now again, your word doesn't necessarily have to be used from the hint. Sometimes that won't work. And also it doesn't have to be a fancy word. As long as it's just some sort of phrase or idea or word that captures the meaning that you think should go in that sentence, that's all that matters. Before we go on to number 3, that's another double blank. Let's do one more single blank. So let's look at this number 5. The bearded dragon lizard is a voracious eater, so blank that it will consume as many insects as possible. All right, well, we need to know what voracious means. Voracious means kind of, unquenchable, eating. A voracious eater is someone who just doesn't stop eating, essentially. Eats a lot of different things, eats in volume and in quantity. So we need something like voracious, right? The bearded dragon is a voracious eater. So voracious, or, unquenchable, maybe you can use, anything like that, that it will consume as many insects as possible. So we need something in the blanks that means something like, voracious, unquenchable, unstoppable, something like that. Abstemious, voracious? Nope. Abstemious is the opposite. It pretty much means, sparing in what you eat, kind of not indulging in that way. Cannibalistic and voracious? No. Slovenly and voracious or unquenchable? No. Insatiable? Aha, there we go. That looks good. So we'll check that. Unpalatable? No. So the answer here is D. And that's all there is to it. Now let's look at the dual blankers. Now, just because you've got a dual blank doesn't make it any harder. Actually, in some ways, it makes it easier. Basically, the only thing you do for a dual blank that's different is you pick the blank you want to do first, you put in a word, then you eliminate based off of that word, and then you go back to the second blank and you put in a new word, and then you eliminate through what's left. So let's see, do I want to do number one? Okay, let's do number one. Some fans feel that sports events are blank, only when the competitors are of equal ability, making the outcome of the game blank. Well, let's see. Some fans feel that sports events are something, only when the competitors are equal, making the outcome of the game something. Well, let's start with the second blank. If the competitors are of equal ability, the outcome of the game will probably be something like unknown, right? Or unpredictable. So let's go to the blanks and look for a word that means something like unknown. So assured and unknown? No way. That is the opposite. And now, this is the great thing about the dual blanks, we don't even have to check successful, because we know if assured is wrong, the entire thing is wrong, so we can cross off the entire choice. Questionable and unknown? Yeah, okay. Foreseen and unknown? No, that's an opposite. We can get rid of that. Predictable and unknown? Nope. Uncertain and unknown? Yep. So now we've gotten down to two choices. So even if we didn't know, say, what would go into this blank, we can at least have a 50-50 guess. Which is kind of what I want to say about all this section, is that even if you don't know all the vocab of a question, you can at least use this technique to eliminate. And if you can eliminate, again, 2 or 3, you should be guessing randomly. So that's why I don't really say any kind of give you any guidelines for omitting, especially in the reading section, because you just have so many opportunities to eliminate that it's kind of questionable why you'd want to omit questions. So let's go to the first blank. Some fans feel that sports events are, how about interesting, right? Are interesting only when the competitors are of equal ability, making the game unknown. So, is it boring or exciting? Well, it's not going to be boring, so exciting is the answer, and E is in fact the answer to this question. Let's take a look at number 3. The consumer advocate claimed that while drug manufacturers blank the supposed advantages of their proprietary brands, generic versions of the same medications are often equally something. Well, let's go to the second blank first, because I feel like that one will be easier. So we're talking about proprietary drugs and generic versions. The generic versions of the same medications are often equally what? Well, useful maybe, beneficial, effective, right? They're going to be the same, according to the sentence, as the they're going to be the same as the proprietary blends, and we can also see this by this phrase while. The computer advocate claimed that while drug manufacturers something the supposed advantages, generic versions are often equally, advantageous, useful, beneficial. So let's go to the choices and see which one fits. Efficacious and effective and beneficial? Yep. So we'll leave that. Innocuous, harmless? No. Prohibitive? Nope. Counterproductive and effective? No. Prescriptive and effective? Not really. We can get rid of E. We're actually down to A already. Prescriptive is a nasty one because we think of prescription. So that's kind of an example of one of the kind of trap answers I'll lay for you, that if you put this in, you might think, that might work well. Alright, so we know the answer is A, but let's just go look at this first blank. So, advocate claimed that while drug manufacturers, let's see, blank, so announced or like praised or bragged about, something like that. And as it turns out, tout pretty much means those things, essentially, in a nutshell. So the answer here is A. Let's check out number 4. Latoya's blank is shown by her ability to be blank. She can see her own faults more clearly than anyone else can. So let's see. Latoya is, I don't know, let's say, well, we can look over here. Latoya's blank is shown by her ability to be blank. She can see her own faults more clearly than anyone else can. So this is our hint, right? She can see her own faults. So this word has got to mean something like she can see her own faults. So how about something like reflective? Or, you know, by her ability to be able to see her own faults, right? You can just put the hint back in here. So let's look for something like reflective or can see her own faults. Self-centered? Nope. That's the opposite. Restrictive? We'll leave it. It's a little weird, but probably not. Self-destructive? No. It's a little bit too strong. Complacent? No. Self-critical? Aha. That looks good. So let's see. Latoya's, I don't know, insight, intuition, something like that, like knowledge, internal knowledge, maybe will work here, right? Because this is essentially going to mean something about this quality of her, being able to see her own faults. So something positive, we know that for sure. It's something about her knowledge, her intelligence. So that's where we are. Objectivity and insight, intuition, not really. I mean, it's not bad, actually. So we'll kind of double squiggly it, but insightfulness works so much better. So the answer here is E. Number 6, because drummer Tony Williams paved the way for later jazz fusion musicians, he is considered a blank of that style. So, because drummer Tony Williams paved the way, so he was a pathfinder, essentially. So we can say pathfinder here, right? He's considered a pathfinder, a beginner, like a starter, originator. Originator is probably the best one here. So we need something like originator. Let's go to the choices. Connoisseur and originator? No. Revivalist? No, he didn't bring it back. He started it, so we can get rid of B. Beneficiary? Nope, that's not an originator. Disparager? No, that's negative. No good. Progenitor? Yes, that is exactly what we need, and the answer here is going to be E. The politician's speech to the crowd was composed of nothing but blank, a bitter railing against the party's opponents. Well, this is probably going to mean this, right? A bitter railing. So what is a bitter railing? So a rant, or, a rant is good. So let's look for something that means rant. Digressions? Nope. Diatribes? Aha. Platitudes? No. Machinations? No. Acclamations? No. So the answer here is going to be B, diatribes. Last one, 8. Favoring economy of expression in writing, the professor urged students towards a blank rather than a blank prose style. Well, he favored economy of expression, so he would urge the students towards an economical, or, sparse or simple. So let's look for the first. Sparse, simple, economical? Yep. Terse, simple, economical? Yep. Personal? No. Baroque? No. Repetitive? No. Rather than well, we need something the opposite of simple, so complex, wordy, verbose, all these will work. So ornate and opinionated. So opinionated, that wouldn't make sense, but ornate fits perfectly, and the answer here will be A. So that is the general breakdown of how to approach the sentence completions questions, and that's about it. So it's about vocabulary, but also it's about having a constant approach or strategy that you can use when you're doing these questions. So if you like this video, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out reasonprep.com for more SAT help, more information. The next video, I think 7, right? No, 6. 7. Yeah, video 7, we're going to talk about the reading passages. So stay tuned for that one.